Hello, and welcome to Around the Political World with John Rothman. I am your host, John Rothman. If you're a fan of the show, make sure to hit the follow button on the top right of Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you are listening at this very moment. When you hit follow, leave a review or share an episode with a friend. It helps other people discover the show, keeps us going. As I like to point out each and every day, it expands our base. There are many subjects which we could deal with this morning, but I want to begin with retribution. Retribution. Letitia James, the Attorney General of the state of New York, has been indicted. It's not a major issue of politics and concern and an issue that will affect all of New Yorkers. Rather, it is a question of what she did with her mortgage. Now, let me be clear. If she did something wrong, she should be, held accountable. But what is this all about, really? It is Donald Trump's campaign of retribution against individuals who he believes have done him wrong. And that's not the way our justice system should work. A president of the United States should not be able to unleash the Justice Department against political enemies. Remember Richard Nixon's enemies list? Remember the revulsion the American people felt when that was revealed? Well, we should feel the same revulsion today. The attack on James Comey and Letitia James, and perhaps a sitting United States Senator, Adam Schiff, who did, according to the speculation, exactly what Letitia James did. Well, my friends, that's retribution. And retribution has no place in American politics when it comes from the President of the United States. President Trump is, in fact, abusing, in my judgment, presidential power. And the Justice Department has begun examining mortgage fraud issues involving Lisa Cook, the Federal Reserve Governor, who's won success in lower courts in challenging Donald Trump's efforts to remove her from her job. That, by the way, is going all the way to the United States Supreme Court. But do you understand what I'm saying? We are now seeing a Justice Department weaponized. And that, to me, is the most horrible thing imaginable. What's even worse, in a way, is the fact that the President of the United States is getting away with it. Do you think there are objections from Republicans in Congress to this kind of conduct? The answer is no. And Democrats can make all the points they want. But do you think that it makes the slightest difference to Donald Trump? I am raising this with you this morning because yesterday, when the announcement of the indictment against Letitia James was announced, I was appalled and shocked. Well, I shouldn't say shocked. It appears that when Donald Trump wants something, one way or the other, he gets it. Except in the case of the Nobel Peace Prize. And let's talk about that for a moment. The decision of Donald Trump to go to the Middle East, I believe he will be there on Monday. He will speak to the Israeli parliament. He will welcome the hostages back, along with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. 3 cheers for Trump and 3 cheers for Netanyahu. This, my friends, is a breakthrough. It does not mean peace. Let's be clear. We don't know who will govern Gaza. We don't know whether Hamas will be disarmed. We don't know what the future holds in terms of real negotiation. But what we do know is that the hostages and the bodies of hostages are now being released. And that is a good thing. Did Donald Trump deserve the Nobel Peace Prize? I discussed this at some length yesterday. I simply want to reinforce. The answer is maybe next year. Let's see how this process goes. But there is no doubt that Donald Trump deserves credit. He pulled it off. Now the question becomes, what will come next in the Middle East? And for that, we'll just have to wait and see. There is another area of the world in which there is a lot of action, and one which is of deep concern. Ukraine is not on the front pages of the newspapers. In fact, most people are barely considering what's happening there. And Vladimir Putin is happy about that. Last night, there was a major attack on power sources in Ukraine. The city of Kiev was darkened because what Vladimir Putin has decided to do is to go after the infrastructure of the Ukrainians. Now, I have not heard Donald Trump speak out in the last few days about this, nor has America directly condemned what Putin is doing in a loud and clear voice. But we ought to be condemning it. Of course, as I have pointed out in the past, and I hasten to point out now, there is little that we, the United States, can do about what's happening in Ukraine. Sanctions, well, Putin really won't be affected by our sanctions. And of course, we understand that the fear in Europe is of a prolonged war involving nuclear weapons. And as you know, the Russians have threatened just that. We now have a stalemate. There is nothing we can do in Ukraine to save the situation. And the odds of a war in Europe are limited. But let me point out, if there were no nuclear weapons, there would be a war in Europe. And one last point, the Nobel Peace Prize was awarded to the leader of the opposition in Venezuela. She has a lot of courage. She's spoken out. And the reason is because we all understand the problem of democracy in Venezuela. Let me also indicate to you that our position when it comes to Venezuela, now, that is the United States, is very interesting. We have hit 4 of their ships. And of course, we are told that those ships contained drug smugglers. And Donald Trump is going to pursue that, and he should pursue that, and we should all be aware of it. But you will note it is not the front page of the newspapers either. Maybe our attention span is so limited that we just can't figure out what to focus on. My job here on Around the Political World with John Rothman is to try to give you some focus, some sense of where we stand and why we don't stand. We are going to watch this weekend over what happens in the Middle East. We're going to watch the continuing campaign of retribution. We're going to be watching very carefully about what happens with Ukraine. And we are going to be watching very carefully about what happens now in Venezuela. There are so many issues of vital import, and we are going to try to examine them with you every single day, right here on Around the Political World with John Rothman. It's the weekend, so I am taking the weekend off, of course, but I want to thank you for tuning into another episode of Around the Political World with John Rothman. I am John Rothman. Make sure to follow along. Let me know your thoughts on the show by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts and sharing an episode with a friend or colleague so we can continue to grow and expand, which, of course, is our goal. I appreciate all of your comments on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and, of course, your direct emails to yours truly. We'll be back on Monday, but I want to say a big thank you to the wonderful producer of this podcast, Gogo Zoger. Gogo does a great job, and believe me, I'm grateful for everything she does. And to all of you, have a wonderful weekend. I'll be back on Columbus Day or Indigenous Peoples Day, whatever you want to call it, on Monday, and we will continue on Around the Political World with John Rothman. See you then.